So everyone's favorite horror murder clown Pennywise is back with HBO's newest horror series, Welcome to Derry, a prequel to the It novel and movies that further explore on the lore of It and its relation to the town of Derry, and it is absolutely slapping. Hello everyone, I'm Finn, welcome back to Finn Films. Join me once again for Welcome to Derry Explain, where we break down and explain everything that happened on the newest episodes of Welcome to Derry. This week we will be exploring Welcome to Derry episode 3, as we see the shining character Dick Hallorann have a close and horrifying encounter with Pennywise the Clown in the cistern. As well, we get some crazy reveals on the origin story of General Shaw and his childhood links to Derry. Finally, we see our new Losers Club come face to face with the nightmare-fueled creature that has been plaguing the town, as well as cause the deaths of their friends. I will be covering all of this and more in this video, so just sit back for Welcome to Derry Episode 3 Explained. Welcome to Derry Episode 3 opens with a flashback, back to Derry in 1908, as we see a young 12-year-old boy visiting a traveling carnival on the outskirts of Derry. We later learn that this is Francis Shaw, a young 12-year-old version of General Shaw, the man who is running the military dig site in the present, who is trying to locate Pennywise to use it as a weapon for the Cold War. We watch the boy enter into a freak show tent, where he sees a number of horrifying things. A strange wolf-like man, another man with elongated limbs, a set of twins joined together by their innards. He looks up, seeing an empty hallway, as he walks down it alone. In the background, we can almost see what appears to be a visage of Pennywise, glowing eyes and all. At the end of the hallway, he finds a man, a skeletal man, more bone than flesh, missing a single eye. A man who, to me, kind of bears a shocking resemblance to the old man in the animated movie Monster House. The man scaring at young Francis, who goes running out of the freak show tent where he runs into his dad. His dad handing him a slingshot that he won for him, as the two then leave. On their drive back to Derry, their car overheats. Francis going and buying a bottle of water from a group of Native American children, but he is short 2 cents. One of the kids, a young girl around his age, fancying his slingshot, which Francis gladly gives to her. This young girl, we come to learn later on in this episode, is Rose, the woman who runs the antique store in town in the present, who is an elder member of the Native American community in Derry. We see that Francis and Rose become close friends, the two kids playing together as we watch Francis run off into the western woods, Rose telling him to come back, that it's not safe there. Francis, now alone, once again encounters the skeletal man. This time, however, it's not the actual man from the carnival, but it, masquerading as the man, preying on Francis's fear, as it begins chasing him through the woods, the skeletal man transforming into this horrifying visage with a gnarled maw. Just as it looks like it's going to pounce on Francis, the creature is struck by a rock in the face. Rose using the slingshot given to her by Francis, wounding Pennywise, giving the two kids time to escape. The use of the slingshot being a kind of fun, interesting through line to the It novel and movie series, specifically how Bill and Bev used a slingshot to harm Pennywise. This specific slingshot used by Rose, though, we will see be an important artifact that appears later on in the episode. We flash over to Juniper Hill in the present, where we see Lily's mom is coming to pick her up. Her doctor subtly referencing that if Lily's incidents continue, they might need to take a more restrictive treatment approach, which sounds to me like he is suggesting a lobotomy. Lily's talking with the head of housekeeping, whom Lily has established a bond with over her visits at Juniper Hill. Lily confiding in her about the situation that she has found herself in with Ronnie and Ronnie's dad. The head housekeeper believing her story, telling her that she is a bright girl who will find a way to make things right. At the jail, we see Chief Bowers meeting with Ronnie's dad, Hank, offering him a cigarette. Ronnie's dad saying he prefers to smoke Embassy Golds, and is still sticking to his story that he was at home the night when the incident happened at the theater. Chief Bowers said that they had a witness call in placing him at the scene of the crime, something that we know is false. Bowers producing a pack of Embassy Gold cigarettes that he claims to have found at the crime scene, as the police and town people have fully planned to make Hank the scapegoat for the death of these children. We flash over to Derry High, where we follow Ronnie through the school, everyone staring at her, as the news of her father's arrest has spread quickly. Some kid writing "Hatchet Hank's gonna fry" on her locker. Ronnie trying to rub the writing off if she then heads to the bathroom trying to clean the red from her fingers. She is joined by Lily, who tells her that she is going to go to the police and tell them what she actually saw. She also tells Ronnie about her encounter with her dad at the grocery store we saw in the last episode. The two girls saying that they need evidence to convince people what they're seeing is actually true, as they come up with a plan to take a picture of this creature for proof. But they need someone who can develop the film. Back at the base, we see General Shaw getting the sit rep of the dig site and the Cadillac that was recovered at the end of episode 2. Colonel Fuller saying that this car belonged to the Bradley gang, and the Bradley gang shootout incident from the 1935 cycle, and that eyewitness reports from this time say the entity was sighted at the shootout in one of its regular occurring forms, which we know is the Pennywise the Clown form. Now this is interesting because this interaction shows that the government actually know a lot about it and its relationship to Derry. They know about the regular cycles that occur in Derry, and they know of its abilities to take different forms. General Shaw saying that they need to put Dick Hallorann in the air with Major Hallorin to better utilize his psychic abilities to actually be able to locate Pennywise. Shaw pulling out a box from his desk, hinting that whatever is in this box will be able to help Dick guide him to Pennywise. As we then see Dick drinking with his friends on the base, as he is then summoned to go on his mission. As Dick goes and meets with Major Hallorin and his partner, Dick being handed the strange cigar box that was taken from General Shaw. In the air, we see Dick open the box. Inside is the slingshot that Rose used to hurt it in the opening flashback, this being the first teaser that General Shaw was the young boy from the opening scene. Dick grasping the slingshot with has a strong connection to it, using his psychic powers. He tells Major Hallorin to fly east as he begins having visions. We are transported back to the flashback as we see Shaw and Rose running from the creature escaping. Rose telling the boy that the creature doesn't leave the woods, Shaw asking why it can't leave the woods. Rose asking if the boy can keep a secret. We are then transported back to the present as we see a grown-up Rose who is revealed to be a woman from the antique store. Now, they don't come out and say it, but what Rose likely told Shaw about why Pennywise can't leave the woods is likely due to Pennywise's connection with the native people here in Derry whenever it first arrived many years ago. The fact that the native peoples of Derry ultimately bound this creature with the ritual of Chud, this likely being the story reason why Pennywise, cannot leave this region of Derry. We see that Rose is in a meeting with the other native peoples of this area, who are trying to figure out what to do about the army's dig, as the army is encroaching on their ceremony grounds. A younger man, her nephew, coming and sitting by Rose, telling him that the car the government dug up was Al Bradley's from 1935. The young man wanting to take action, but she tells him no. They just need to wait, watch, and see what the government is actually up to, as she plans on sending a cease and desist letter to the Air Force. Back in the plane, Dick's vision continues to strengthen as we watch him stand up and begin walking, as he is then transported into the sewers, which leads to the cistern, which we know from the movies and the book is basically where it calls home deep in the sewers, as we see a large wooden box with a visage of the clown, the words Pennywise written above it. The box opening as Dick stares within it, we then see two glowing eyes, the voice of Pennywise filling Dick's mind, asking him, "Who are you?" Dick then is bombarded with flashbacks and visions as he sees a war zone, this possibly being specific instances from his past, as he then looks up. Above him we see floating bodies of people and children, one of them turning to look at Dick, which Dick recognizes as his grandmother, who tells him to get out of there now, as Dick frantically runs to the door and begins twisting it open. We flash back to the plane as we see Dick has opened the hatch to the back of the airplane and is attempting to jump out of it mid-flight. Major Hallorin grabbing him as the man snaps back to his senses. Dick realizing that while he was supposed to be the one searching for the entity with his psychic powers, it is the entity who has taken notice of him, who has seen him. We then see General Shaw coming and meeting with Dick in the hospital ward, Shaw telling him if Dick needs anything, he just needs to ask. Dick asking the general for a spot where he and his pals can drink and just relax, this likely being the origins for the Black Spot, a place in the It movies and It novel where black servicemen go to drink. This being the only time where Dick Hallorann's character makes a minor appearance in the It novel, the spot ultimately being burnt to the ground by the people of Derry. Dick warning the general that they shouldn't go looking for this thing, as he is obviously shaken from his encounter with it. This being the first time, seemingly, that Dick's psychic powers have been bent against him, as he has a feeling that something bad is coming. We flash over to Will and Rich, who are eating at a diner, when they are approached by Lily and Ronnie, the girls asking if Will can develop film for them, as they tell Will and Rich everything that they've been through. Will later talking with Rich, saying that he believes that the girls believe what's happening, but he doesn't know why he has agreed to help them. Rich teasing Will, saying he agreed because he is in love with Ronnie. Over at Rose's antique store, she gets a surprise visitor, General Shaw. This being the moment in the story where it is revealed General Shaw was the young boy Francis, this being the first time that these two characters have seen each other in 50 years. As not long after they met, Francis's dad was transferred to a different military base, and in the time away from Derry, Francis has forgotten everything about his childhood interactions with Derry and with Rose. This forgetting of Derry, we know from the It novel and movies, is completely normal, as everyone who leaves Derry basically forgets everything they know about Derry. Francis having completely forgotten about Rose until the cease and desist letter came across his desk. Francis asking for Rose's help in the dig, as this encounter seemingly has almost transported these two older adults back to their past 12-year-old kid selves. As in another flashback, we see Rose giving Francis back his slingshot as something to remember her by. In the present, we see Lily has brought Ronnie, Will, and Rich to the Lookout Observatory spot, which was Phil and Teddy's hangout place, as the group then come up with a plan. Rick saying his uncle back in Cuba was a Santeria priest and would do rituals to summon spirits of the dead, and that he believes whatever this thing is likely one of these spirits, what he refers to as an Oricha. At the Hanlon house, we see Dick has been invited to join them for dinner, Major Hanlon getting a dirty look by two passers-by. We watch them make small talk as we learn Mrs. Hanlon was once a history teacher at a colored school in Louisiana, as she used to be involved in the civil rights movement, but Major Hanlon has asked her to stop participating due to his military career. Dick, in passing, asking Major Hanlon where his son is tonight, but Major Hanlon never mentioned having a son at all to Dick. We flash over seeing the kids are at the graveyard as they are preparing to do Rich's ritual in the hopes of capturing something on the camera. Outside, we see Dick and Major Halloran having a beer, the Major asking him how he knew about his son, and also what happened up on the plane. Dick telling him about his gift, his psychic abilities, aka The Shining. Major Hanlon saying he has heard of things like this before, but he has never seen it for himself. The Major also saying that just before Dick asked him about his son, he felt something strange happening in his mind. Something that he has only felt one other time, the night that he was attacked, which we can gather was Dick using his psychic powers to probe into the Major's mind. The Major then putting two and two together, that Dick was there the night that he was attacked. Dick saying he has no more plans to delve into the Major's mind, as he is frightened of a man that even when faced with a loaded gun and certain death, felt no fear. This confirming that Major Hanlon's brain injury he suffered in the Korean War did make it to where he no longer feels fear. Dick telling the Major, again, that he has no plans to mess with him, as the Major saved his life, and he would love to be alongside him in the trenches. Back in the graveyard, we see Rich doing the ritual, but something is off, the kids calling the boy out on it. Rich then admitting that all of this was bullshit. He just made it up so he could be of help, and he just wanted to make friends. As Ronnie and Lily in anger get out of there, getting on their bikes and riding away. Something strange, though, begins to happen. As the girls ride towards the exit of the cemetery, it continues to get farther and farther away. Will and Rich grabbing their bikes and pedaling after them. As we watch the ground begin to quake, headstones cracking as the ground splits apart, the kids frantically pedaling for their lives. They are then attacked by a number of ghosts, as we see Rich's uncle as well as the ghostly dead bodies of Teddy and Susie. Lily managing to snag a picture, but she loses the camera in the process. We watch the kids then frantically bike away through the cemetery, the camera hot potatoing between all of the children. Will crashing his bike near a mausoleum. Rich dropping the camera near him as he screams, biking away, meeting up with the girls as they all manage to escape. Will, still in the cemetery, picks up the camera, as we see a figure move in the mausoleum behind him. Will walking into the mausoleum where we see the arm of Pennywise. Will frantically pulling the camera up and taking a picture, when the scene then switches over to the other kids. The show teasing us that Will died here in this moment, when we see a light coming in the distance, as it is revealed to be Will on his bicycle. The kids then head over to the high school as Will begins developing the film. To their shock, they see they managed to capture the photos of the ghosts of Teddy and Susie. Will developing the final picture that he took in the mausoleum, where we see the ghostly visage of Pennywise the Clown, glowing eyes and all. All of the kids looking on in horror, Will saying confused that it looks like a clown, as episode 3 of Welcome to Derry comes to an end. And yes, this was everything that happened in Welcome to Derry episode 3, as we are really starting to see our kind of two main plot points here diverge and really starting to take shape. First off, we have the main kind of plot with the Losers Club, as this group of kids slowly start to explore and just try to uncover what exactly is going on with Derry. As we see in the climax, the very end of this episode, episode 3, they finally discover, one of the true forms, one of the main forms of this creature, of it, that being the Pennywise the Clown form, as the group of kids are trying to uncover evidence through the pictures that they've taken of all of the weird things going on in Derry, in an attempt to save Ronnie's dad, Hank, from his unfair trial as he is being blamed for the death of their friends, Phil, Teddy, and Susie. I think that was her name. On the flip side of that, we have the kind of conspiratorial, government kind of Cold War plot here going on in Derry, as we see our characters Major Hanlon, the grandfather of Mike Hanlon, and the shining character Dick Hallorann, the character with psychic abilities, aka The Shining, further exploring, the government's wishes as the government is attempting to uncover, the kind of resting place of it in an attempt to capture this strange eldritch horror creature and then use it as a war tool in their fight against the Soviets in the Cold War. Oh, classic US government in the Cold War, trying to come up with all sorts of crazy shenanigans. First we had men who stare at goats, now we have men trying to bind a eldritch horror nightmare fuel fear-inducing creature to use against their enemies. Surely nothing will go wrong with this plotline. And then obviously amidst both of these kind of plot lines, we have further kind of major plot reveals, story reveals, kind of filling in the blanks on the origin story of Pennywise the Clown, of it in Derry, and its relationship to this town of Derry over the course of the hundreds of years that it has been on the earth here in Derry. Actually, according to the novel, the creature was here all the way back, I believe, in the dinosaur time. But I don't know if the movie series, HBO series, is rewriting that a part of the timeline or not. One of the things that I love about this show is its willingness to take all of these kind of broad lore plot points we have from the It novel series and the movie series, things that really weren't extrapolated that much in the novel itself, but were referenced, and they're using all of these pieces of lore and then bringing them together to further kind of expand on the story of It as a whole. I said this in another video, but it very much reminds me of what HBO is doing with House of the Dragon. Specifically how House of the Dragon, the kind of Game of Thrones prequel series, is taking a novel, Fire and Blood, which is basically an in-world history kind of account, and then further expanding upon all of these historic details in the Game of Thrones universe, and then adding a lot more context and intrigue within them. Welcome to Derry is kind of doing the same thing in the It universe, the Stephen King universe, taking all of these kind of plot points and broad details that we know about, for example, the 1935 Bradley Gang massacre, and then adding more context and information to them that wasn't given to us in the novel series itself. The Bradley Gang just being one example of many that I'm sure we are going to get, of course, across this season and the future seasons of Welcome to Derry, as I can almost guarantee within this season we will also see a major plot point being the Black Spot. It wouldn't shock me if this was actually the series finale, as well as reference to the ironworks, fire that happened back in the early 1900s in Derry. There are all of these major events in the Derry It cycle that we know about that have been referenced to, that it seems like the show is going to further explore, add more context and detail and more information to really kind of round out and tell this story. And I absolutely love it so far. So far, my two favorite characters are probably Major Hanlon and Dick Hallorann. I love the fact that they took Dick Hallorann, a very minor character that is mentioned in the It novel series, specifically in, I believe, Mike's recalling of his information that he learned about the Black Spot when he was doing his historical research, a character that later appears in The Shining, being a much more, important character much later in the, Stephen King universe timeline in The Shining, as an adult, a character with psychic powers, and really taking this character, putting them in the It story, making them have a much more important role in the It story, and I think that it just absolutely, it works, and it's fantastic, as well as a really cool kind of nugget of lore, a reference for the, the diehard Stephen King fans. And it makes me really wonder what other Stephen King characters and Stephen King, kind of lore tidbits in the, expanded Stephen King universe are going to show up, in the Welcome to Derry series. As we need to remember that all of the Stephen King horror novels are taking place in the same universe across the same timeline, from, the It novel to The Shining to Pet Sematary, take your pick, they all take place across the same timeline in the same universe. So these characters, oftentimes will make appearances within the other stories, and it really seems like Welcome to Derry is kind of really nailing in on this, Stephen King expanded universe, and bringing in characters and plot points that would make sense for the It kind of origin story. And I imagine that in the other seasons of Welcome to Derry, which are going to take place farther back in the Derry timeline, they're probably going to do this as well. So far, I'm an absolutely massive fan of Welcome to Derry. It combines all of the things that I love about the It novel series, the It movies, the nostalgia of the 60s and 70s and 80s intermixed with the Stephen King universe. Combine that with a group of, awesome, fun, interesting characters and Little Losers Club 2 Electric Boogaloo, even though they kind of are a Losers Club kind of prequel. If anything, they are almost the first Losers Club group of kids, because they come before the actual Losers Club in the It novel and movie series. And on top of all of that, it is absolutely horrifying, absolutely terrifying, just visceral, just nightmare fuel inducing, and you know that it's only going to get worse as the series progresses. And all of this, and we still haven't even really seen Bill Skarsgård make a true appearance as Pennywise the Clown. Overall, I'm absolutely loving Welcome to Derry. I think it's an absolutely slapping series and a perfect fit in the kind of Stephen King, It universe timeline here. And I really love all of the creative changes and choices that they're making and their incorporation of, big obscure kind of It lore and Stephen King lore kind of tidbits and references. It's just absolutely fantastic. I love it. It's so great. As always though, guys, with these videos, these are just my thoughts and opinions, so feel free to let me know yours in the comment section down below. What did you think of episode 3 of Welcome to Derry so far? What is your favorite plotline? And what do you think that Dick Hallorann, the shining character, has in store for the rest of this season of Welcome to Derry? Let me know in the comment section. If you did enjoy this video, guys, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as that is the easiest way to support me, and it really does go a long way in putting these videos into the algorithm. If you did like this video, then want to check out some of my other content on screen now. And as always, I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace, love, adieu.